there we go. Cool. Okay. So Evette, is your name Evette?
Yes.
Hey, I'm Max.
Nice to
What's up?
meet you finally. How you doing?
Dude, yeah, like kind of in person almost.
Right.
Um, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So I'm in Santa Barbara, California. It's all sunny and nice out right now. Where are you?
Oh, in Georgia, in a city
Oh,
outside of
Georgia.
Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
That explains the time difference.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I wasn't thinking about that.
Me neither.
Um, yeah. So cool. Yeah. So I was just gonna ask you like a couple questions about like union stuff, and then yeah, cool.
Okay.
Let's see. So what's the union you're a part of?
Now I'm a Teamster, so I'm a union steward with the Teamsters.
Okay. Can you like say what that means for people that aren't familiar with Teamsters or just unions in general?
Well, basically, as a union steward, I serve as the liaison between the employees and management to enforce the contract that we're up under. So any contract
Oh,
violations, anything like that, we have to settle to come up.
how do you like? Huh? How does that work?
How does it work? It's a
Yeah,
definite.
yeah. Because I'm also not a part of a union. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
hopefully what I'm also trying to do, I think, with this is just like help people that aren't familiar. Just be like, hey, look, normal everyday people are parts of unions and stuff, and like this is how it works, you know?
Right. So it's what we call the grievance process. So a grievance is basically a sheet of paper that we fill out anytime anything that's violated in our contract. And a contract is basically the agreement between management and the union. So they have an agreement on wages, on working conditions, of various amount of things that involve workplace issues or things that may occur at work. So if any of those things in the contract are violated, we get that piece of paper, fill it out, whatever article corresponds with the violation, we put that on there, and so that's the way that people can get recourse. They file the grievance, they have a hearing on it to get a resolution, and if at the local level it's not a resolution, it'll go to a further level, to a panel for them to decide on whether the violation occurred and what the recourse would be, whether it's monetary or some other uh, recourse.
Well, okay. Uh, and is it just like anybody that's a part of the union at any point can just say like, let's call together a meeting to talk about grievances, or is it like there's like a monthly meeting, or how does that work?
Well, now the union hall, which each union has a local union hall in different areas. So we have the way it's set up an international union, which is out of Washington D.C., the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and then at each location, they have union stewards in each location that help out in their location when it comes to enforcing the contract, and then they report to their business agent, which is at the local union office near their area. So it's for Georgia, we have one major office that covers the whole state of Georgia when it comes to the Teamsters. For the most part, we do have a couple of other smaller locals that are Teamsters that handle different divisions, but for the most part, anything transportation driven is the local I fall up under. So um, that's the kind of makeup of it. It could be anybody. We're in a right to work at will state, so our contract
Oh,
covers all workers, whether they're union members or not. We still have to represent them.
oh yeah, I forgot about that. So you guys are right to work. So
Mm-hmm.
is that recent, or is that has that been going on for a
Oh
while?
no, that's forever here. We're in the South. The majority of
Yeah.
states here is right to work. Yeah.
Does that mean because what that means basically is like people that are represented by you guys can still opt out. They don't pay dues, and then it kind of
Right.
even though
So
they're still you guys are still doing stuff that benefits them,
correct. So
but they get
everyone who
one
works at the
thing they
location,
don't have.
right? Everyone who works
Yeah.
there, for example, under our contract, for instance, we get
Uh,
free medical, dental, and vision benefits as part
uh,
timers, as well as a pension. And whether you're in the union or not, you still get those benefits. So,
right.
which is something that we don't necessarily like, because people, if
Uh,
you're paying dues and paying for the contract to be negotiated and stuff like that, you wouldn't want anybody. I always give them the example. You don't want somebody living in your house and say, "Well, I'm not going to pay you any rent or any money on utilities, but I'm going to
right.
live here, even though I know your
Yeah.
expenses are going to go up, but I'm not going to pay you anything." So that's the kind of
Exactly.
thing. I kind of get
Uh,
people to understand. You wouldn't want anybody doing you that way, and that's kind of similar. You don't want to just get all the benefits, but not helping in the cause. By paying or contributing toward the union. So yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's so you guys are kind of up against a lot out there then.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
So how'd you become a steward then?
Well, when I started UPS back in '06, I came from a household that my father worked at a union job when I was in Alabama, so he was with the steel workers, but never was truly involved in, union, so I wasn't really too aware of them, but I've always been raised to help people. That's something I've always done. So regardless of the fact, I never like to see anybody being treated unjustly. So me just kind of, going to the steward at the time, letting them know when stuff was, being not speaking. I always speak out. So being that I was very outspoken, I guess it kind of
Mm-hmm.
caught their eye. So they, asked me if I'd be interested in being a steward. I was like, yeah,
Oh,
sure, because that's something I'm gonna advocate regardless anyway. Title, no title, pay or no pay. It's just something I do.
okay. So was it also because I'm starting to get all curious about the governance structures of all these things, right? The worker co-ops and unions, and it seems like it's different across everyone. But for that, is like, did they just choose? Did they just kind of like appoint you? Did they have to do it like a vote or a
Okay,
nomination
so
process, or?
for the head stewards, they have to do an election. So they're elected into the positions for the most part. I came in as an alternate steward, so to help the steward. So he chose him and the business agent. Decided that myself and another, well, it was actually three of us that became alternate stewards. So yeah, just to help out because it's a full load. Even with a contract, you think it's not gonna be a lot, but it's always a lot to do because they are,
Uh,
regardless of the contract, the company still tries to do
uh,
things that violate the contract and keep pushing. So
okay. So that's UPS, and like you were saying, that's different from the Delta thing that you were posted about
exactly,
initially.
right.
They're totally different, right?
Yeah, their setup is different. Because I'm not a machinist. That's the IAM, the machinist union that are trying to organize the Delta campaign. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so theirs is set up differently. So it was a learning process for me too. Even though I am part of a union, it's still slightly different. Their makeup, but kind of the same. But for the most part, they have some similarities as far as the makeup goes. But it's a little different, especially in the airline industry, because everybody can't be, they have locals, but everybody are, they fly so much because it's a lot of, airline people. So for the most part, they have like flight attendants, and it's hard for them to be in one spot at one time. So their stewards are a little different. Or I don't even know if they call them stewards. I think they call them different things, but it's a little different setup how they have to try to they call it a grievance rep. That's what it is. So a grievance rep
Oh,
is what
okay.
kind of what I'll be considered. But they have to reach out to them because they may not necessarily be in the same location as them. So it's a little different setup because of how they move a lot, in the travel industry. So
Grievance rep.
yeah.
So is that? I wonder. So if you're with Teamsters, are they? Is there a specific union that the Delta folks are trying to get involved with? Then that's
Right.
not the Teamsters.
It's not the Teamsters because my local actually couldn't organize Delta because of some agreement over 20 years ago. Our local couldn't do it. Our sister local could, but at the time they weren't in a position to take over the campaign when I first started, and people kind of threw that around as as an option to have the Teamsters come in. So my personal union couldn't do it, but one of our sisters could have. But the machinists represent majority of the other airlines like Southwest and American, so and United. So they are truly familiar with airline contracts and things of that nature. So they're the ones that are pursuing this campaign.
Okay. Let me see. One last thing, maybe on the Delta thing, is let's see. So how did you? So if you're not involved, because I remember you posted that in the group, but you're not in the airline industry. That's a separate union, right? So what made you passionate about trying to spread awareness about that if you're not directly part of their bargaining unit or any of that?
Well, I was with Delta for 7 years. I was recently
Oh,
terminated. Right. So
oh,
I
okay.
was
Now I'm
part.
remembering.
Right. I was part of the
Okay.
workforce. And when I came in 2011, one of my other coworkers, she actually used to work with me at UPS, and she worked for Delta. She worked both as well. So she called me and was like, "Hey, this union campaign is going on." That kind of brought me into what was going on with Delta when I first started as a ramp worker. So I started out on the ramp before I went upstairs to the gates. Um, so of course I'm all about union representation, or representation period, because that's the only option we have right now, and especially in the South is a union because they say right to work is not a lot of other options here in order to have some sort of representation or a voice at work. So I'm all about just getting some representation in there so people can have what they deserve and what they work hard for and have a voice and be able to, negotiate benefits and things of that nature. So that was, it didn't take much to convince me, hey, let's, do the union campaign. I wasn't, saying, hey, it's got to be who I'm with or whatever. The bigger picture is somebody, they need the representation and they need, some recourse, some way to have recourse at the job. So, yeah, that's how, I kind of came in.
Oh, okay. So that was, you worked for Delta for 7 years, yeah, 7 years, and then wait, were you doing UPS and Delta at the same time, or you just
Correct.
went UPS
Both.
now?
Yeah, I've been doing both.
Man, okay.
Yeah.
So working two jobs. Uh, okay. And then so with Delta thing, wait, so just so I understand, did they let you go after because of the union stuff, or what?
Right. So what they
Yeah.
said was I was hired, like I said, I've been at UPS, it'll be 13 years in June. And
Yeah.
Delta, I made 7 years back in November. So I was working both jobs at the same time. It was on my resume, my initial application. So after they started seeing me very active in the union campaign with my union pin that I used to wear to work, handing out flyers, being at the events, very visible and vocal, then all of a sudden my job at UPS became a conflict of interest with Delta after 7 years. All of a sudden, out of the blue. And it's a lot of us that work both. It's still several people in my building that work both. And so since that happened, I knew what the target. It was a target. It wasn't because it was a conflict of interest. It was because, hey, she wants a union here. So that's how that went. They came under the guise of conflict of interest.
Yeah, I've heard about that happening with other people. It's like they once they know you're involved, like they look for something,
Right.
right, to get rid of you, so you don't, you know,
Yeah, but
if they find your especially, right, because it's gonna cut off the head of the,
right.
you know.
That's how that
So
goes. Exactly.
was that how? But are there other people? Since you were, would you say you were sort of leading the effort on that, or you were just one of many people pushing for it, or?
I was one of many, but I was, like I said, very visible because we were organizing for the ramp and cargo, and I was above wing, so I had left the ramp. So the campaign wouldn't have benefited me at all immediately because we weren't the ones, trying to get the contract. But being that I was face to face with customers, every day for the job I do, I was very visible because I'm having this pen on and people could see it and ask questions and whatever. So yeah, that was something that I think they felt would be a good thing for them to come after me. But having a great record at work, never being late, never calling in, never having anything negative. Now it's looking like why would you be coming after this young lady when I know other coworkers at the time have some other issues going on, but they're not being touched. So it's pretty obvious what it was.
Do you think there's any way, if folks can get the word spread that they did that to you and that the effort is still ongoing, that it could help the campaign in a way, knowing this is kind of what folks are up against?
Right, and it definitely will. That's why I decided to come out and tell my story. The reason I made the video that I released on Martin Luther King Day to basically let everybody know the type of things that the Delta workers are dealing with every day at work. Besides the videos being played, anti-union videos, the anti-union flyers in the break room, and even they purchased a billboard that said "No Union" over one of our major interstates. So we really, the people, they really have a fight, on their hands. And I wanted to share that. So ones, and since I've shared my story, actually people have been inboxing me, coming to me, telling me their stories that they've had when it comes to the company. And it's been, really crazy that people have had to deal with a lot of stuff in silence kind of and suffer not knowing that, there's recourse, even though it may have to be legal for us now because of the type of state we're in with no contract. But it's ways to to handle these kind of situations.
How has it impacted you, like personally, since you? I mean, that's losing a job, even if you have UPS as well, but you lost a job, you lost a stream of income that you had, right? Um,
Exactly. It's been tough because, like I, mentioned when they offered, they told me, I had 2 weeks to choose between which job I wanted to keep. That was their offer. And, I let them know no one would want to have to choose. You trying to take care of your family. So, after 7 years of being used to taking care of your family this way, and then all of a sudden, you're not offering additional income or, anything. So for me, it has been, a struggle, but, I'm pushing through it and doing whatever I can to make sure, I can try to maintain to take care of the family. But it has been a change, definitely.
what's the wage ratio would you say between bottom end worker and the top folks at Delta, the executives and all that? Or I don't know if you know if you have that info.
Well, I know it's definitely a lot. I mean,
Started.
they
Okay,
tried
there we
to,
go. Yeah.
yeah, they tried to increase the wages, of the lower end, which would be considered the type of position I had as a Ready Reserve employee because we only can only work 1,400 hours a year, and we have no benefits, no medical, dental, or vision benefits. And it was, I think it's around maybe $12. I think it was, but I think they might have boosted it up a few dollars. They trying to keep the union out, so they gave us a raise after a year and a half of not having one.
So,
Hmm?
so that was, but the ratio, say, like, do you know what the bosses, right? Like managers, the CEOs, all that, right?
Well, I mean,
I always
they
get curious
make it to the
about like
millions
what's the
versus,
bottom thing, what's the top,
a few $1,000s. I mean, like 15,000 to several million. I mean, it's a
right?
big gap. Yeah,
Yeah, like an international corporation and everything, right? Yeah.
exactly.
So
It is.
yeah, that's how it's like, and they're probably giving themselves raises and
Oh yeah, they get raises and we get reduced on things. That's usually how
yeah,
it works.
exactly,
Yeah.
and pennies here and there.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, man, Yvette, thank you. Yeah, I don't know, just any last thing. I don't really know what to expect from how I edit it or whatever. It's like I'm not like a journalist or any like fancy person like that. I'm just trying to see what happens. But any last just thoughts on just like union organizing? Anybody that's interested who wants to get more involved, whether it's Delta or
Right.
their own workplace wherever they are.
Right. So for the word would be for anybody who is passionate about workers' rights, to get involved in their community. Check with their local unions or other local organizations, maybe like the Fight for 15 or Justice for Jobs. Any organization that looks to help out workers, try your best to get involved with those organizations and do what you can to help out the situation because any help for any worker improves all. Once we help anybody, for the lowest of us, it improves every worker in different occupations. It doesn't matter. So it can help for everybody by fighting for the less of them.
Right on. Thanks, Yvette.
All right. You're welcome.
Okay. Well, if I do any editing or anything to this, I'll send it to you first, just see what you think.
Okay.
So so you can approve. If you're like, oh, I don't like that thing I said or something, you can,
Okay.
so you get to say like you get to cut it out or something if you want. So
I appreciate it. I look forward to the next version and so we can put it on out there so get everybody aware of what they need to do.
yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Okay.
All right. Bye
Bye.
bye.